me on the ground, I have fun. I've been known that before, but I've never seen a dance like this. I've been known that before, but I don't wanna come top the list. Alright.
Yo, what's up, people? What is going on? Welcome back to another episode. This is actually the final episode of The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live. Got Jared in the house with me to discuss this episode. How you doing today, brother?
We are doing all right. What about yourself?
Not too bad. Can't complain. It's been a long week. I know we were supposed to do this couple actually when it aired, but life gets in the way sometimes. But we are here and we are able to discuss this final episode. I'm going to read the synopsis real quick and then we'll get into our thoughts. So, this episode, which is episode 6, was called The Last Time. Rick and Michonne return to Cascadia Base, where Michonne sneaks in and finds and destroys Judith's dossier before attending a briefing for the Frontliners, where Michonne learns that the CRM intends to abduct selected children from Portland before destroying the city with chlorine gas. Rick is given the Echelon briefing in which Beale informs him of the truth about the destruction of Omaha and the campus colony, and the upcoming attack on Portland. Beale reveals that being that humanity has only around 14 years left, the CRM is going to declare martial law on the Civic Republic and destroy surviving communities across the world, scavenging their resources to ensure their own survival. Rick kills Beale with his own sword, and Rick and Michonne rig up a makeshift bomb on the chlorine glass arsenal before being confronted by Thorne, who had detected the truth about Michonne's identity. Michonne is forced to kill Thorne, and the bomb and the gas kills CRM Forces Command and all of the Frontliners. With the CRM atrocities exposed and its command structure declimated, the civilian government takes over and reforms the CRM to aid other survivals while enabling free travel to and from the city. Rick and Michonne return home and finally reunite with their children, Judith and R.J. So that's the synopsis for this episode. Let me get your overall thoughts on episode 6.
Overall thoughts would be, if you had asked me episode 5, episode 4, if this could get wrapped up by the end of 6 episodes, I would have said no.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it did wrap up in a reasonable way. I think that there's certain things that I would have liked to have been done a little bit better, but there's also certain things that I really liked. And so we can talk about those when we get to it.
Absolutely. So for me, my overall for this episode, it was a good episode. Um, we had a defining end. I did have a few issues with the episode, but I did enjoy it. Would I put it as one of the best episodes of this series? Probably not, but it's definitely up there. Maybe third or fourth episode that's really good. And the reason why is I'll tell you when we get to our negatives why I think that it kind of loses its tone a little bit for me. But other than that, man, overall solid acting, um, solid end to the story, and we finally get Rick united with his family at the end. So we'll get into our positives, and I'll let you start off with your positives.
First positive, I really enjoyed the scene with Rick and Beale when he was given the briefing. I thought that was really well done, and I really liked, obviously, the family reuniting at the end. I mean, that's what we all wanted from the beginning anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So that was solid. I liked the fact that it had a definitive ending and it wasn't left with a cliffhanger. I'm sure as we talk about it, I'll come up with more, but those are my main ones.
Absolutely. For me, I agree with you. I like the conversation with Rick and Beale. I thought that the pace of this episode was really good. I loved their plan to destroy the CRM. I thought that was really good what they planned to do there, right? I also liked the fact, Michonne goes back to the house. They split up, right? Michonne goes back to the house to find the documents, and Rick goes to talk to Beale. And that scene, you could see, in Rick's eyes that Rick, like, no, I don't care what you're telling me. Like, this is not the way it's supposed to be. You know what I mean? And he didn't even think about, well, maybe we could kill this guy and change it from within anymore. It's just like, no, we have to stop them. And finally, he was on the same page as Michonne with this situation, so I really enjoyed that. Um, Thorne coming in and catching them, that was predictable. I knew that there was going to be a standoff. But I liked the fact that Michonne and Thorne had that fight because that's what I was hoping for. I wanted to see those two fight and go at it. I think it was a little short, could have been a little bit longer, but I definitely thought that the fight scene was very good there. And of course, we have our likes, which is the action. Rick and Michonne, their acting is amazing. You know, um, John Locke, you can't really say too much about him, but he's one of my negatives. I can tell you that. That's the problem that I had with this episode too. Anything else?
Some of the, it's just hard to narrow it down, but like that scene where Rick gets off the elevator and they have Beale's body in that box, and Michonne's like, "What's in the box?" And it's like
Hmm.
he's just like, "Don't ask." Just
And
like little snippets like that. I it just they're it's like they're badass, but at the same time they're like able to like joke around at the same time,
hmm hmm
which which I just enjoy them being together again.
and another thing too is like Rick can actually fight now. You know what I mean? Because he's been through the training, so you can see he's actually fight. Because I was watching this video, going through some of the old Walking Dead stuff, and they pretty much showed clips of Rick getting his ass bust a few times. You know what I mean? And they like to say, when it's the bad guy, like the main bad guy, like Negan, the governor, Rick usually gets his butt beat. But when it's just regular guys, Rick's a badass. Like when he bit that guy's throat and killed him, which he
Mhm.
talked about in another episode, that showed how really of a badass Rick is. But it seemed to me like every time there was a big baddie, he always was getting beat. But because now he has some training, I think Rick's a little bit more, a little better fighter than he was during the season. So I really enjoyed that. Um,
Yeah,
go
I
ahead.
mean, I would definitely agree with that. And then as far as like you bringing up the ripping the guy's throat out when he's talking to Beale, that would be another like that I have is those tiny. I mean, they were like less than a second or two per scene, but those little flashbacks of what these two have been through together.
Hmm.
I mean, it just like if you watched this show but you didn't watch The Walking Dead, that wouldn't mean that much to you. But as a longtime fan, that was pretty cool to see all that stuff again.
Absolutely. And for me, like you said, it did have a definitive end, but it seems like the story, like the overall Walking Dead story, still has some stuff where it can go, right? So now I got all my mind thinking about how we can get them all together for one last hurrah. You need to get Morgan, you need to get Maggie, Negan, you have to have Gabriel, Rick, Daryl, to get all these guys together for maybe at least one more mini series or something like that, which I think would be absolutely great if they did that. I'm always down for more Walking Dead. So we got Daryl coming up soon, which is called The Book of Carol. Did you see the trailer for
Mhm.
that yet?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so the trailer came out, which is looking pretty good. I'm like, okay, we got Carol involved in it. And they said that she didn't sign on for the first season, but the second season she's all in. So I think they're leading up to something. I really do. Probably won't be a theatrical movie, but maybe um a mini movie on one of the streaming services is something that they're leading up to, because even though, you know, the CRM, well, CRC, whatever,
Hmm.
actually is helping people now, I think there's still going to be something within that faction that they may have to, deal with, right? Maybe there's a group that's going to be trying to destroy what they're building, and the communities and stuff like that. I don't know. We'll see. But it seems like to me that there's definitely at least one more story they can milk out of it. A lot of people are saying, oh, they're milking The Walking Dead, but I'm a fan, so you can give me more Walking Dead as much as you want. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, with them incorporating Carol into the second season of Daryl, and she's on her way to go find him. Even if it's just if it's like a tiny little cameo scene at the end of the second season, the way that it was this season with Rick and Judith. If there's like a 45-second, minute-long cameo where Carol brings Daryl home and Daryl and Rick reunite, I mean,
Hmm.
he never gave up looking for Rick,
Hmm.
never. So we can't just let that never happen.
Hmm. Absolutely. Morgan left. He went to go look for Rick, right? So
Hmm.
those are little threads in the shows that haven't been completed yet. So I promise you, they're gonna end up completing it, right? I think that this series, I heard mixed views. I heard a lot of people saying it was good. I think there were some spoilers that were going around on the internet that kind of, had people kind of, up in arms and panties in bunch and stuff like that. But overall, I haven't heard anyone really say that this wasn't a good series. Like most of the people that I've watched or did reviews on it, they enjoyed it, Little things that we're going to get into, because we're going to get into the negatives. What did you not like about this episode?
Do you remember when they did the seasons with Negan and they had some of those episodes that were slightly extended? Like instead of getting a 43-minute episode, would get like an hour and 5-minute episode.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I think that this episode was a little bit rushed, and I think that it could have benefited from either being a little bit longer or being a two-parter.
Hmm.
So that would be one negative. I mean, other negatives, like, I mean, we've said it before. We'll say it again. I don't know if that's your negative about John Locke, but like he was not used enough.
Hmm.
Um, and then I would have liked to see more cameos at the end when they got back to Alexandria. So that's a minor nitpick. I know that with budgets and casting and stuff, you can't do that all the time. But I would have liked to see that. And then that scene where Rick pulls the grenade and it blows up all the walkers around him, but somehow it does not hurt him. Those are my negatives, my biggest ones.
You know what? I'm right there with you, because I'm like, Rick's dead. They killed Rick. I was like,
Yeah,
okay, damn. But then I'm like, they I was like, they can't kill Rick because he didn't get his ending. So I'm like, I know he's not dead, but he should have been dead in that situation,
he should.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention, when the bomb and the gas goes off, they should have been dead there too, right? Don't ask me why the water stopped the gas from them breathing in all that gas. I have no idea, but that's what they went with. So that was a nitpick for me too. I was like, yeah, that's kind of, iffy right there. I agree with you 100%. John Locke was 100% underused in this series. And I think that was one of the biggest issues that I thought I was going to have, is because, like we said earlier, I'm like, there's no way you finish this up in this 1, 2 episodes, right? We thought that there would be some sort of maybe an, a an ending that left it open for another season, pretty much, right? Because I'm like, there's no way. And that's the problem that I have with this episode, and maybe even the series, because the CRM stuff seemed really rushed. You know what I mean? This is something that you could have probably milked out for a whole season. I get it. Rick doesn't want to do The Walking Dead for so long or whatever. But I always say, if you pay them the big bucks, they might
Hmm.
just say yes. You know what I mean? So I think if you were going to go the route that they did, this series definitely needed more than 6 episodes because they wrapped it up in a tight little bow in one episode. Now, the way they did it made sense, right? Because they had that whole meeting. They made sure they bombed that meeting where all the soldiers were at, right? So you didn't have to like, oh, we got to do this here and then do that here. No, they had a opportunity where everyone was gathered in one situation and we just got to blow it up, right? But they killed a lot of people in that last bombing, right?
What they killed a lot of people, but not only that, like I'm looking at Beale or John Locke, whatever you want to call him, as being he's supposed to be like the big bad of the season. When he told Rick how many people he'd given that briefing to before, he screwed
Mhm.
up because Rick's
Mhm.
like, I know exactly who I have to kill, how many people I have to kill, and then they got it done, and then they fixed everything in one quick little thing.
Mhm. 100%. It felt rushed, you know what I mean? It felt like they gave us a lot of, connecting between Rick and Michonne and, fighting Rick's demons and stuff like that, trying to get away. And then they have to decide they got to go back and they pretty much go back and wipe out everybody. Not even a whole episode, right? Maybe in the last fucking 20 minutes of that episode, right? They went back and just wiped out everybody. And I was just like, okay, well, I understand you gotta end it in a certain way. You gotta end it, right? That's what everybody wanted. So they did that way. I agree with you with the end. The fact that we didn't even need to see major like actors, right? Like Gabriel and all them. We could have just seen them walking into Alexandria or
Into the
something like
gates.
that. Yeah, you know what I mean? Just to see them like out there in the bushes just like that. I get it. They probably didn't want to or have the budget to fix up everything, but they could have did some sort of CGI, something, green screen or whatever to make it look like they were actually going into Alexandria. You know what I mean? But I guess budget wise, they had to do it the way they did it. So that was a little bit of a nitpick to me. But that's where I say it can open up to more, right? Because we haven't seen Rick actually in Alexandria now. So all of the connections that he had before he was gone, or all the people that thought he was dead, will be there. You know what I mean? Um, Ezekiel's right hand man, I can't remember his name right now. He's
Jerry.
still there. Yeah, right. He's still there. Him and Rick have kind of a little something too at the same time. So there's people there that, have connections with Rick. And I would have liked to have seen, Rick walk through those gates and everybody just like, wow, I can't believe he's still alive. Not to mention Rick realizing who's gone, who's dead, you know what I mean? Who's missing and stuff like that. So I think that would have been a nice little ending. But again, for me, that just opens it up to where it could be like, oh, that's what we can tackle in another season, right? They don't even have to call it The Walking Dead. They could call it, like I heard people saying, call it The Ones Who Live. You know what I mean? And use that as a like a 1 season, maybe 2 season story about how they wrap everything up. Because in the comic book, Rick dies. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
He dies in the comic book. So I think they might want to do that in the show. I don't know, maybe. So we'll see.
I think they should make a season with Rick and Michonne and Alexandria and call it The Ones Who Are Left, because at this point there's not that many of them left.
That's true. That's true. And then,
But
we can tie in all the little stories into this one little series that they plan to do and then end it like that. You know what I mean? Like completely ended. And Dead City and Darrow, whatever spin-offs, but it seems to me like they're just I think there's another spin-off coming if I'm not mistaken, or I think it was something else I heard, but they just seem to be planning on doing certain spin-offs, maybe Darrow, the ratings are good, So they decide, hey, we're going to continue Daryl going on. Who knows? What up, Hayden Nate? How you doing, man? Thanks for popping in. Much appreciated. So I just say, like, if you guys like The Walking Dead, I said it on every time we did this review, you definitely should be watching this series. It was really good. You know, I think character development and all the stuff that they actually did in these series, this one, the Daryl Show, Dead City, it's definitely a little bit back to form. With The Walking Dead. That probably works better with shorter seasons because I think a lot of the things that people complained about was there was a lot of, filler episodes. I think it should be more than six, maybe 16, 15 episodes a season. I think that would be good. And that way you can weed out all the filler episodes and, you know, tell a complete story. So we'll see where it
This
goes. Anything else? Go ahead.
this series definitely would have benefited from it being at least 8 or 9, at least,
Hmm. Hmm.
just to not rush it so much. But then at the same time, you got the character development of Michonne, and her acting in this was just phenomenal. And then you have the scenes where Rick's talking about how like she woke him up and she brought him back because he was broken.
Hmm.
And like not only did she bring him back to life, so to speak, she brought him home to his kids. And so even though it was rushed, I still really liked the ending.
Hmm. Absolutely. Me too. And it's funny, right? Because when you watch it, you don't realize that. And Judith, she grew, right? I was like,
Oh
oh
yeah.
man, Judith looks old, right? Like older now, a lot older from the last time we seen her. But you don't realize that Judith has never met Rick. You know what I mean? It's like you don't, because when Rick was gone, they had that jump, and then you see Judith at, I think, whatever age she was, 10 or something like that. So she's never really met. I mean, she was a baby, but she's never really met until she could, you know what I mean? She's never really met her father. So that was a good scene. Him meeting RJ for the first time was a good scene too, as well. And I think they could definitely do something with that because when he sees RJ, RJ's wearing a hat like Carl had used to wear. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? So I'm pretty sure that was kind of like, okay, yeah, this is my kid. So that's interesting. I like the way they
Yeah,
did
'cause
that.
at the end at the I don't remember if it's the finale or if it's the episode before the finale of the original show. Judith gives him that hat and is like, "This is
Hmm.
yours now." And
Yeah.
so it's just like Rick's kids. They just keep passing it down.
Hmm. Absolutely. And it keeps Carl's memory alive, you know what I mean? So I think there's definitely a lot they can do going forward. Wrap it up in a complete bow because to me, I don't feel like it's over yet, right? Especially with the Morgan stuff, especially with the Daryl stuff and the Negan stuff. It's not finished yet, you know. I know Rick's arc is finished, but the story is not finished. And if you're going to finish the story, you need to have them all together for one last season, one last hurrah, and they can go out. But again, they've already called the last season of Walking Dead the final season. So a lot of people are, look, they're just milking it and milking it. But again, I still think that, they can actually do a little bit more to finish it. So it's just my opinion. Um, what about your grades for this episode? Your grades for the whole series in general?
I'm gonna give it a B plus for the episode for the fact that I think it was a little bit rushed. It could have had some more time to breathe. I'll give the series itself an A minus because, like earlier, you said I don't think this was the best episode, but at the same time, like if we were gonna go through and rank these episodes, I feel personally like it's gonna be hard to put one over the other because, in my opinion, all 6 of them were good.
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely,
it's like if one is better than the other, it's not better by much. Like they were all good.
absolutely, one hundred
So
percent. I agree with you 100%. I'm like when we say, oh, this episode wasn't as good as this episode. doesn't mean that the episode was bad or it's like not as good by a lot, like you said. Like they're like little mini, you can call them nitpicks even, that just kind
Hmm.
of make it, you know what I mean, not as good as the previous episode. Like I said, for me, for this one, the fact that, you know, Locke was underused, the CRM story felt a little bit rushed at the end. Those are things that I could say make it not as good as previous episodes. So I'm gonna go a little bit better. I'm gonna give this episode an A. I'll give it an A, and I'm gonna give the whole series and all an A too as well. Like I said, there were a few things in some of these episodes that I did like, that I didn't like, but every episode was good. So they did a great job with that. Do you have any predictions going forward, though? What do you think they plan to do, or what they should do?
I can't say what I think they will do. I can say what I hope they do, and it's kind of
Mhm,
similar to what you like. I want to see Carol bring Daryl home. I want to see that reunite happen. Um, and then, however they're going to do it, which because Dead City is not doesn't have a release date yet, I'd like to see Maggie come home and see
mhm,
everybody. And it's AMC. I don't care what you got money. Put the money
mhm,
where it is because they
mhm,
like the budget. You can only use the budget as an excuse for so long because it's AMC.
mhm.
Um,
I agree with
and
you.
you can see like the actors' schedules and this and that and the other, and it's like I'm not seeing these people in other things. So what are they busy
Mhm.
with?
Good
Um,
point.
so I would love to see just even if it's like an hour-long TV special, it doesn't have to be a movie, something where at the end of all these spin-offs, we get to see these characters right off into the sunset.
Mhm. I agree.
Um,
Do you want them to follow the comic and kill Rick at the end of the series?
it depends on how they would do it because at the end of the comic, they kill Rick, and then at the very end of the comic, it's Carl telling his child the story of the apocalypse,
Mhm.
which we can't do that anymore because we've already killed Carl. So,
You can with RJ though. I think
well,
that's
you
kind of why they did that, you know what I mean?
you could with RJ, but I would argue that he was so young and he was not part of the action as much as Judith that
That's true.
if they're gonna go that route, I would rather them use Judith as a mom and
Mhm.
be like,
Mhm.
you know, this was the brave man and this is how he
Mhm.
came back to us and all that stuff because I feel like she could have more of a context than RJ could because he, didn't even meet Rick until he was like 8 or 9 years old.
Mhm. I agree. I agree. I think Judith would be a better choice for that. But again, Judith was young with all of that stuff too, right?
She was.
But
She was.
at least she was there for what, the 8 years or whatever Rick was gone. You know what I mean? She built a relationship with Negan as well. She actually was the one that I think pretty much changed Negan and saved him. You know what I mean? Because he did a lot to try and save that girl through certain situations. So I agree with you. I think it should be Judith that did that, and Walking Dead does that kind of stuff all the time. So it wouldn't be a problem if they did that. And I agree with you. If they did decide to kill Rick, they would have to do it in a way that makes sense. You know what I mean? But it would be a fitting end because you would see finally Rick's dream come true right before he dies. And then you
Hmm.
could cut to a scene with Judith telling her kids the story, you know what I mean? And maybe humanity has been coming back and, the zombies are dying, and you could do it something like that. So it'd be interesting if they did that. Very
Yeah, and I
interesting.
mean, like they could have Lydia come back from, Negan was close with Lydia, the daughter of the Whisperers.
Hmm.
They could have Gracie come back, Aaron's daughter that he adopted from the Saviors. They could have
Hmm.
Herschel come. I mean, they could have the next generation telling the story.
Hmm.
There's enough of them that they could do that, and it would be pretty cool if they did. But I hope that they can find a way in Dead City season 2 to continue to show Negan's compassion for kids because he always cared about Carl. He cared about Judith. He cared about Lydia. He was a dick in so many ways, but he never had a bad bone with kids.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very layered show, and a lot of people think, oh, it's just about zombies and that's all it is, but it's more than that.
Oh, absolutely. Before I watched it, like I think I started watching season one when season two was going on. And the reason why is because I was like, I don't want to watch no zombie shows. I don't even care about zombies. But then you watch the season, I watched season one, I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. So that's how I ended up getting hooked. So I had to binge watch season one and then catch up to season two because it was like in the middle of it when I started watching it. And then after that, when I caught up, I was watching them every Sunday when they popped on. So, you know. So, guys, with that being said, that is our review of The Walking Dead. Let me know in the comments if you watched it, if you liked it, what was your grades, what did you not like? Let me know. I think it was a good series. Do you want to see more Walking Dead? Let us know. Jared, thank you for joining me for this series. And, if I'm not sure if I'm going to do Daryl or whatever, but if I do, you'll definitely be on there with me. All right.
Just let me know.
I will. Thank you, everybody, for watching the show. It was appreciated. Make sure to check out the OOC in about a half an hour. We got a good one coming up. We got a good one coming up. So
you're not gonna trash cops for Danny, are you?
No. We ain't doing the cop thing. I got
All
something
right.
good for tonight. We kind of did that a couple of weeks ago. Had some cop bashing. I think Danny had already passed out and went to bed, so he didn't see it. But yeah, we definitely did some cop bashing. With that being said, guys, thank you everybody for popping in. Make sure to check us out in half an hour. Peace.
Alright, real bad man, now we people guns. We take dance into a higher rank. We spend pound and we spend franc. Janaba new dance and Astrodiga and Grant. Yes, on the river.